Welcome back, everyone. Welcome back to Phil's Recap and Review, the Orville Season 1 review. And here we are. We're going to talk about pretty much the whole season. We will mention a little bit about the season finale and what we thought about that, but generally talking about the whole season. It's not really an ongoing story arc, so it's more about individual episodes. So I kind of want to just take a quick look and read the synopsis of the episode and talk about what was some of our favorite and least favorite episodes of the season. But in general, I'm excited to be back here talking about this show. I mentioned it a little bit at the beginning of the season and was going to keep watching it week to week. And generally, I have been really impressed. This show has grown on me in a sense, mainly because of the chemistry that the cast has and the love that's obvious of Star Trek in it all. I'm still not the biggest Seth MacFarlane fan as an actor, and I like to preface this because I'm not a huge Family Guy fan. Except for maybe the first seasons of it. And I don't like any of the other Seth shows minus Jean-Luc Picard on American Dad or something. But so going into this show, I had really low expectations, and I was afraid that he would ruin the show for me, essentially. But ultimately, I've sort of grown accustomed to him. I still wish the captain was, I could think of a couple of other people I would rather in the position playing the actor that plays the captain, but he does a good enough job in that position. But what really makes the show interesting is all the bridge crew. The bridge crew are all well-developed, full-fledged out characters. They each had an individual episode or two that focused on them in a next generation sort of way. The show really establishes what was really great about Star Trek Next Generation, and it gives you that on a silver platter with a few funny jokes mixed in that are hit or miss here and there. And I think if anything doesn't work on the show, it's sometimes some of the jokes don't necessarily fly for me, but that's just my particular taste in humor, or I think it clashes with how serious the show seems. But when it's at its funniest, it just feels like real people in the Star Trek world in that kind of universe. But I babbled enough about this because I haven't even ever given Joe a chance to share what his thoughts are. Or we're also joined, by, of course, the live motherfucking chat. The live motherfucking chat. Thank you for joining us for this stream about Orville. But Joe, I haven't really heard too much about what you think about Orville this season. What are your thoughts? You're more of a, and I'll say it right off, I'm more of a Star Trek fan. You're more of a science fiction fan. You like a lot more shows, not that you don't like Star Trek and I don't like other science fiction, but you're a lot more open to, you've seen the Battlestars, the Babylons, all that sort of shit, stuff I haven't necessarily been exposed to as much, where I'm stick mainly in the Star Trek universe. So what are your opinions on Orville?
I love it. I absolutely love it. It wasn't what I thought it was going to be when the season started, which threw me for a loop. I didn't really need to warm up to it. I liked it right from the beginning. If you watch my rewatch, I think our first talk about it, it's delivered everything. I'm a huge Seth MacFarlane fan in all of his work that he's done, except his acting, like you said. His Die a Thousand Ways in the West wasn't as good as I wanted it to be, but yeah, no. I think I'm a lot bigger fan of his than you are.
So. Oh yeah, much bigger.
This worked out for me. This was good. And as you were saying, I love Star Trek. That's where I got my start in science fiction, along with Star Wars, of course. But I am a big sci-fi fan in general. I love all the cheesy sci-fi shit.
I would say that's in some ways your favorite genre, right?
It might be. It might actually be my favorite genre, if not fantasy shit like Game of Thrones or Lord of the Rings. But yeah, the fantasy part and the science part are both like science fiction and sci-fi fantasy. That's where I have my favorite stuff usually. And sci-fi history, like like Atlantis on BBC or Hercules and Xena and shit. Like, I love this fantasy shit. And because it's what it is, when they do stupid shit, I don't care as much. Like, when you want to be a drama series based in fantasy, like a Walking Dead, and you do something stupid, I care. When you do something stupid in this comedy drama series of Orville, And I'm
It
like, what the
works.
fuck? It doesn't
works.
like in the finale, she's all like, don't tell me how to be not like I know about the Prime Directive. I'm all good with the Prime Directive. And then 2 seconds later, fuck the Prime Directive. I fucked it all
Yeah,
up.
she broke the blind. I should have given two fucks about it. What I really love about this from a Seth MacFarlane standpoint is I thought he was a one-trick pony. I thought he didn't have a different gear for a different kind of show. And in what you were saying, I expected something much more akin to spoofing Star Trek, not showing his love for it.
Yeah, this is all about the love for Star Trek. It's not about making fun of the fans or the genre at all. It takes it and it gives it a much more human feel as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Like you were saying.
Yeah, and these generally speaking, like I understand all these characters. I don't love every single one of them, but for your Star Trek fans, Cassidy Yates is really awesome on this series. She's also really excellent on 24 in her run as the First Lady, and that she's a really great actress, and she adds a lot of
She's
like
the doctor, right?
yeah, she's a doctor. She just adds just a different level to the show. Norm Macdonald in his use on the show is used very well. Sometimes his character can seem like he's in a different show. We talked about this a little bit before, where he doesn't pull off the technobabble as much as the core cast does. But I do like him popping up every once in a while because that Norm Macdonald voice is recognizable, and he's not played too Norm Macdonald-y. He's definitely playing a character on the
He's
ship.
not shoved down our throat.
He's not shoved down he's not doing Pigeon on Mike Tyson, which I love Pigeon on Mike Tyson, but you could think that if he's doing another voice, it's going to come off exactly like that. It doesn't. He's a different kind of character, and especially in the last couple of episodes when they deal with him losing out on the job and stuff, you see a different side. You see how he's a kind of guy that's going to feel good if you make him feel good about it, but just going to make it stink. Like, I understand what kind of character each person is on the show. They have that guy doing the voice of Data that isn't Data but is fucking Data in every way possible, is fucking Data. But this show isn't going to be for everybody. But the only thing I'll say to those of you that have strayed away from it because you're afraid of it making fun of Star Trek or not, or being too Seth MacFarlane-y for you or too jokey for you, or you've gotten what you've needed out of Futurama or Spaceballs or whatever, like, and you're like, I don't need another, or Galaxy Quest, and you're like, this is nowhere. It's not the same thing as any of those things.
It's not those whatsoever. This is the Star Trek series we've actually been waiting for since Next Generation or Deep Space Nine.
It is another, they don't say it, but for everything except for maybe cloaking shit, it is another ship in the Federation. You know who the Klingons are. You know who who all the like. I loved in this last episode how they're playing a game and it's like a Klingon game that you get stabbed in the hands.
And the fucked up thing is, I won.
I won the game. That's so funny. That's so Klingon. I mean, they put different changes to the creatures and stuff, but you can tell who everyone's supposed to be one for one. And almost as we're going to get into these episodes, you can almost. This is a different game. Maybe something I'll do in the off season as a standalone video about each episode of Orville, or about what episode of Star Trek it's inspired by. And to me, this is where it's a fine line. Someone watching this could think of it as cloying or too copycat, or that it's not very original or something like that. And why do I need to watch this when Next Generation? And I respect those people that think that. All I'm saying is, for me and for Joe and for Stephanie and my cousin Craig, who aren't huge Star Trek fans, so they watch it as regular fans. I also have another friend named Stephanie who's a huge Star Trek fan, and she's loving this series as well because she feels like it truly embraces what Star Trek's about. And I think, or what 90s Star Trek is about. Right. And I think Joe's right. We've been waiting for this, or a lot of people have been waiting for this series since Voyager went off the air, because it was an Enterprise. And for a lot of people, it isn't Discovery. And I like Discovery, but this is different. It's a different kind of show. And it's a world where both those shows can exist and both be awesome, which is my opinion. But Orville is the biggest surprise. Not going to spoil Joe and I's award show at the end of the year podcast that we're going to do in a couple of weeks here. But Orville is my surprise show of this year, where last year was Lethal Weapon, and I'm still liking Lethal Weapon this season.
Wait. Last year was also Limitless was last year too.
No, Limitless was like 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah,
Okay.
well, yeah, it's tough. We've been doing this a while, Joe. Star Trek Orville is my surprise hit of this season. I was not expecting anything from it. I was expecting it to suck, and it's the show each week I'm most excited to tune in and watch at that particular half of the season. I mean, now that Vikings is around, I would say this and Vikings, and now it's off the air right when Vikings start. So I would say Vikings is this different section of the time. But this fall, it's been my favorite show.
It's a good show. There's been a few shows
not my favorite, not my favorite, my biggest surprise.
There's a few shows I watch that are really, I just fucking adore them and absolutely love them. Pam Adler's, Pam Adlin's, whatever that. Fuck! How did you just forget the name of her show?
Well, you can look it up. Look it up. I'll babble for a second.
Better Things. Sorry, it's one of my favorite shows for what it is. Like, I can't
Galaxy.
get enough of it.
I'm sorry. Galaxy Quest is coming to TV too. Then Amazon Galaxy Quest.
Yep, I'm excited for that. I'm also excited starting soon as Jean-Claude Van Johnson in like a week on Amazon. Amazon's got some good shows, but they also have some shows that haven't really held up or been that great.
No, and they're hit or miss. They're good, kinda. They have some good elements, but they're not like all the way good. Something like the series with Cranston and the con man guy or something. It was like half good and half bad. Like it's not quite there, but another couple of years, and I think Amazon's going to start getting some.
They have The Tick, which is amazing.
Yeah, Tick is great. Tick is great. I've been watching that too. It's awesome. So and Alex says Better Things. So yes, and that's the thing. Out of everything that Seth MacFarlane's ever done, the Orville's the most wholesome of all the shows.
Oh, absolutely.
It's got the overall feel in the point of it all, and the message in the entire series is very much the same messages that you get in Star Trek: The Next Generation. And
they're a little different though, at the same time, with the use of the pot, and there was a smoking pot.
Right, the world's a different world, and you hear about in one of the episodes it wasn't the what was it? They talk about. It almost makes it seem like the world itself is like an episode of Black Mirror, where like money doesn't matter anymore and its reputation or something. Or am I making that up? Isn't there an episode?
No, they said that in the previous episode, I think, where reputation counts for more than it's more reputation than money.
Right, or something like that. And it's not the fucking the food replicators. It's not the replication that destroyed Want. Like I think in the Star Trek world, it's the invention of replicators is what changed the world, so to speak.
That's what they said. I think that's what they said it was in this one.
Oh, was it the replicators and stuff?
Yeah.
Don't ruin Galaxy Quest, Amazon. Okay, so all in all, this season was going to be. What was it going to be? 13 episodes, and they decided to call back one of the episodes, and it ended up being 12.
I think it was 16, and they called back a few episodes.
No, it was 12. It was 12, and there was going to be a 13th episode that's going to air as the season premiere of season 2.
Which is good, because if it had anything to do with what they were if it was gonna be a cliffhanger, then it will be basically a 2-week, premiere rather than a cliffhang you until next season bullshit.
So what's really interesting about Orville is that they got a lot of really cool directors to work on these episodes. I think that's a big part of why the show was so well done. They got some movie directors, some directors that are part of Star Trek. Some of these people, I won't know who they are, but I just want to read through the list of all the directors for the season for a couple of names you'll remember if you're a Star Trek fan, or not even just a Star Trek fan. Episode 1, which ultimately I think was my least favorite episode of the whole season, but that's beside the point, was directed by John. I'd like to rewatch it now. Was directed by Jon Favreau.
Oh, Favreau, that's right. He's a producer of the show too, isn't he?
I believe so. Episode 2 was directed by someone named Robert Duncan McNeil, which I don't know too well. Episode 3 was one of a few episodes in the season directed by Brandon Braga of Star Trek. James L. Conroy directed an episode. Braga, he was one of the main creative forces behind Star Trek Next Generation and Voyager and in Deep Space Nine generation of Star Trek.
Which just goes to show you exactly what they're going for. They're not going for a ripoff, they're going for a tribute. And there's a big difference. They're not doing a disservice to the fans or to the original work. They're more trying to expand upon the feeling you had when you watched the show the first time. When you watched, not the show the first time, but Star Trek The Next Generation and the next few accompanying series.
And they're trying to get those people that were involved in making it to be a part of the episode.
Correct.
The next episode was directed by James L. Conway, someone that's very well known. The next episode is directed by William fucking Riker, Jonathan Frakes, which was one of the,
at least one by him in this.
Which was one of the best episodes of the season. And we're going to go through each one of these episodes, but the episode that he directed was called Priya. It was the episode that focused a lot on the first officer, and it kind of won me over on Grayson by the end of this episode. It's the episode with Charlize Theron in it, where she kind of manipulates Mercer but is attracted to him, and she's really from a future time. And
I hate fucking Charlize Theron so much.
And Joe Caesar directed an episode. Tucker Gates, Brandon Braga directed another episode 8. Cupid's Dagger was directed by Jamie Babbitt. Brandon Braga directed Firestorm. Kelly Cronin directed New Dimensions, and Brandon Braga. So Brandon Braga, Star Trek veteran, one of the people basically responsible for Star Trek Next Generation being what it was and Voyager being what it was, and I believe he had a little bit to do with Deep Space Nine. I could be messing with my Star Trek creators, but he's one of the groups. Berman and Braga directed 4 episodes of a 12-episode season.
That, don't forget about Frakes too,
and then Frakes. So that alone, you had 5 of the 12 of the 12 episodes directed by Star Trek people that are actually connected to the franchise. Not to mention, you had Robert Picaro, the Doctor from Voyager, show up.
Yep.
I believe there are a couple of other cameos that I might just be missing along the way that you had in different episodes. People from Star Trek are embracing this, and I wouldn't be surprised if you see even more in season 2.
No, it's perfect. It's wonderful. It really is. I really like it. It's my favorite sci-fi show that I've seen this year.
I heard that MacFarlane was pitched to CBS and took it to Fox. This was his Star Trek that he pitched to Fox as a parody event, trademark permission issued with CBS. I did hear something along those lines of where he wanted to do a Star Trek thing and they weren't going to let him. No. And they said no, so he decided to do his own series. I want to say I heard him talking a podcast about it at some point. I have it somewhere in the back of my memory, but way too many sandwiches.
He wanted to do it. Look how many of his episodes have guest stars of Star Trek cast. Hell, American Dad has recurring Patrick Stewart on it, like as a main character, as you know,
playing Dirty Picard,
the boss. Right? He loves everything to do with, especially Next Generation.
Yep.
And it really does show in all the detail that goes into this show. And again, I can't say it enough for anybody out there who's like, hey, this is just a ripoff and it's not, and it's stupid. It's actually far more brilliant, and it's a touching tribute than
it is.
I think people realize.
And it got me emotional a bunch of times throughout the season in very surprising ways, and we're not going to get to pick apart,
and not because of the writing, but because of the nostalgic feeling and fresh material,
and some of the chemistry that the cast has. Specifically, Alara,
the 2 helmsmen.
The 2 helmsmen are funny. They're comedic, but I do like what they did eventually with his character, because the genius. Yeah, I like how that kind of went back to previous episodes and sort of showed you what he's more all about. But my favorite 2 characters on the show are Bortus and Alara. I think Bortus is fucking amazing, and Alara, I don't know, I really believe her in that role, and I think she kind of owns it. And the first
Tyrese too.
Yeah, Tyrese. Yeah, Tyrese being in there, a very
Bortles
small,
backup.
Yeah, a small but very important part. And I think generally it's cast really well. I didn't like the guy that they had as the engineer, so I'm glad that they got rid of him. I'd seen him.
I didn't mind him. He's been in some things.
He's been in a lot of things. Seth said in Google Talk that he noted that people were taking the Orville seriously, and he doesn't have to throw a pie all that often. It's true, and you saw that as time went on, and I don't know if it was intentional or not. As time went on, the jokes sort of started to become less and less.
They need to, and that's just it. They seemed a little forced, like all the way up until the Avis, when they went and they were like, "Oh, Avis is their god." What, the rental car shit?
Like, we put like Seinfeld clips in. There's a couple of things that like seemed a little out of place here and there, but maybe that might partly be me being so impressed by the world building and so impressed by the characters that this show is creating that my want is making the show more than the creators necessarily want it to be. But I don't think that's the case. I honestly don't think that's the case. I think if now that he knows people like the show for what he's trying to do, I expect season 2 to be even more dramatic, or not dramatic, but more take itself just as serious. And
I think they can do a few more jokes that aren't necessarily our time pop culture reference jokes,
meta jokes.
Like they can really work tongue-in-cheek jokes into the conversations or into what's going on, like the puff of smoke that came out of what's her name's mouth, and he's all chestless. "Oh, you want to come in for a drink?" And he starts shaking. Like, there's a lot of ways you can do tongue-in-cheek and you can do funny without having to draw us into current events.
You know what's funny?
Current events without making it about this specific.
Joe, I just thought of a perfect example, that the green guy that was in the elevator, and then we saw him a couple of times later in the season.
Hey, guy.
Yeah, everything with that character from a funny standpoint was hilarious, and it really made sense in a Star Trek world with him. And that, getting the music, changing the wanting to set the music in the seat, the elevator music. Yeah, I loved that. I loved all of that. That was one of my highlight points of the entire season. Then he showed up again later.
Yeah, when they were playing the Sweets game and he took control and he was like, "Well, you see," he starts telling about his life.
I love that. That was things like that, like comedy like that, things like the comedy that they do with Isaac's character, with Data's character. I'm going to call him Data. Deal with it. So the shit that they do with Data on the show is very funny. And like the most hilarious joke of the entire season to me, even though you could see it coming a mile away, was when Isaac cut off the pilot's leg. Practical joke.
Or even when he says to the two kids, "Oh, you can't come with me. You're feeble and not oriented well to this task because you are so feeble and young."
Because you're a fucking meatbag and stuff like that. Like you're talking like the robot in Knights of the Old Republic. And that's what I like too. That episode where I was like, oh shit, this is gonna be like a kid episode and it's gonna be annoying. Those kids are awesome too, and they fit their part really. I mean, they're annoying, but they play that annoying really well. And they built them up so annoying that when they finally have that episode where they're stuck with Isaac, it's the most hilarious shit, because especially when he starts shutting them up and like shows them discipline and stuff. Like Isaac is fucking awesome. So and I'm glad that they gave us a Data character, and I hope Brent Spiner shows up in the show because he can do comedy really well. So he would be an excellent addition to, or an excellent cameo.
Oh, dude, I love his web series there.
Fresh Hell. I'm really upset they never finished it. It was exceptionally well done. Brilliant. I wanted them to continue. He tried to get budget to continue that, and he didn't, so he decided to let it die on the vine. But ultimately he did have another season written from it, but he couldn't get it because ultimately they did the web series to hopefully get it picked up by Amazon or Netflix or something, and I don't think they shopped it around. I don't think anyone wanted to give them the money for it, which is a shame, because I think it was great. I think it would have been a really fun. I think maybe he didn't shop it to enough networks. Maybe something like ITC that gave Marin his show. Like I think there's certain networks, Comedy Central maybe or something.
They should have reshopped it to YouTube Red.
To YouTube Red or something like that. Like tried different means, Crackle even, or something like where Seinfeld took comedians with cars and coffee and shit. Like there's certain other mediums that you could bring it to right now, but I think he was dead set on trying to get it to be
back into television.
Yeah, getting back into television in some ways, from what I've read about it. And so he was a little it was a disappointing thing, but he will talk. I guess he'll talk about it a little bit more if you meet him at conventions and stuff. Anyways, so now we're going to go through each of the episodes, and I'm just going to read the little brief synopsis of the episode, and we'll talk about anything we particularly remember. What I'll say, though, is between now and Orville being back, I'm not against doing some watches of Orville episodes. We're always looking for things to do live watches.
Oh, see, we've already watched these episodes, so I will come over and watch them.
Right, that's what I'm saying. Like maybe once it's added to Netflix or something, it'll be cool to have you come over and we'll do a couple of watches of our favorite episodes or select episodes of Orville and do more reactions.
I'm up on Hulu right now. I got a Hulu, so we could do it.
Sweet. And I just got a new TV that I can hook Hulu into it, so we
could do live watches for the Cheers too.
Sweet.
Do our recap while we do live watches of some episodes.
Yeah, definitely. So let's get into talking about these episodes.
I was thinking we could pick our favorite like two or three each because they're only a half hour, and live watch those 2 each, and then do our review basically while we were watching those.
No, absolutely. We could definitely talk more about that and figure out how we're going to do that. So okay, the first episode's Old Wounds. It basically deals with Mercer dealing with his divorce and getting the pilot of the Orville. It's a lot of introductions and stuff. Mercer and Grayson get a device to kill the Krill vessel. It's one of the first episodes that we see the Krill, which the Krill, I guess, are kind of Klingon-ish as well. And do you remember much from the first episode? But you liked it right from the beginning, right?
I liked it right from the beginning, yeah. Basically, I won't have many memories of any of these episodes aside from their basic plot outline. Maybe a few one-liners will stick out, but my general feeling with every episode I watched, I had a smile ear to ear. Maybe I didn't laugh. Maybe I didn't like belly laugh or almost piss myself at almost any of the jokes throughout the entire season. They weren't those kind of jokes. To me, they weren't anyway, but
me neither.
I just remember being happy watching it throughout the whole season, throughout every episode. Yep. Just being happy, enjoying the jokes, enjoying the fresh sci-fi, the vintage feeling. Like, so I won't have much to comment about any of these episodes, with the exception of maybe the finale that I watched this morning because it was already up on Hulu and I missed it last night.
D is right. We met Rob Lowe and the crew in this first episode. Basically, that was everything. And yeah, the mystery of the missing episode is, the Orville episode guide there. They will be great for episode rewatches. Mandela, great to see you in the live motherfucking chat. And people in the US, do you know why press critics hate Seth so much? Because he's a comedian that takes a lot of shots. So at the press and at a lot of people, like MacFarlane, for good or for bad, is one of those guys that just doesn't give a fuck. And he has his perspective of funny jokes, whether you find him funny or don't find him funny. He doesn't hold to a lot of conventions.
Right. One of your main recurring characters on one of your main shows is a pedophile, is a most likely pedophile character that you've kind of at least made him into an American war vet that fights a Nazi, so you kind of feel good about him, but he's also a pedophile. You're pretty sure that old guy down the street is a pedophile. So these are, like, as much as there's funny moments involving this is a touchy subject for a lot of people. And there's a lot of people in the media who have been abused, I'm sure, that do not find these kind of jokes funny, and they're right for that. But it's not wrong to necessarily have this character and joke about it. So he pushes the envelope far, and he doesn't give a fuck about.
And critics have never been good to him. It's from beginning to end. They decided early on that we fucking hate this guy and we're going to trash him. And I'm not saying his movies are good. I don't like any movies he's acted in, to be honest with you. And I'm not a big fan of his comedy. I don't find him funny. And it's not because I get offended by his jokes. It's like, I'm fucking a huge Matt Stone and Trey Parker fan. I'm a South Park fanboy, so I sort of fucking.
I'm not as big into South Park. I find it to be
fair. I love
episodes a season.
I love Matt and Trey and all that sort of stuff. But that's not mean I draw a line in the sand. I just don't find it funny.
I love their live movies so much more than their South Park. I wish they would come out with more Basketball, Cannibal the Musical, Orgasmo. These movies are just fucking brilliant, eye candy, and fucking laughter friendly.
So, but yeah, people have their preferences of comedians and of people that do satirical stuff. And either people find someone funny, they don't find someone funny. That's why I find it relatively hard to talk about comedy, because you can never tell anyone, hey, that's not funny. Like, because people laugh at whatever. And I'm not a big believer of the high comedy versus low comedy thing. It's whatever makes people laugh. And if you can be someone that's cool enough or has something that can make some people laugh, who gives a fuck if you don't make other people laugh? Making people laugh is a good fucking thing, and Seth makes a shit ton of people laugh. He just doesn't usually make me laugh, and that's fucking truth. That's all I can say about it. And people,
acting, not so much, but his cartoons, oh my fucking god, die.
And to answer your question, generally speaking, sometimes the critics a bit. Let's take Led Zeppelin for instance. The Rolling Stone, the magazine, and decided that they hate Led Zeppelin, and for fucking billion years, whatever, they would never say anything good about Zeppelin's music. You know, so like some critics just decide that a band or an act or a performer is shit, so they're gonna pan them. It's and they're not honest to what their real thoughts are. And a lot of people came into Orville going, this sucks. Fuck this show. That's why it's gotten a lot of shitty critical acclaim, or especially at the beginning of the series, like a lot of critics shit on it. So, and I just think they weren't really watching it. They were just shitting on it because it was Seth MacFarlane. And I had that problem going into it.
And they were writing it off immediately. They weren't looking behind the Emerald Curtain. They weren't looking past the Star Trek Next Generation veneer that it has, and that for a lot of people is something hard to get. Yeah,
and I mean it's fair, and I know this is someone put this. I don't usually mention this site or mention other reviews really, but I think part of the question why Alex was asking that is because Orville has a really low score on Rotten Tomatoes, which is from
the critics,
an aggregate of the fans on like IMDb rank it pretty high, and most people that watch the show and
love it.
It's one of those shows that has a high percentage of, if you like Star Trek and watch it. I only know a couple of my friends that are into Star Trek that hate it, and I don't really believe they hate it. I think that they're being pig-headed and stupid.
They haven't given it the chance.
Our mutual friend Opie has decided before he even watches it that anyone that watches this show is an idiot.
and that's a foolish assumption to
but
make.
That's how he like, and I say this to his face, and I hope you're watching. He's like that sometimes with shows where it's like he makes a decision that something's horrible, watches 5 minutes of something, decides it's shit. He decides he hated real Star Trek for 10 years till I showed him the episode In the Pale Moonlight of Deep Space Nine, where he finally went, oh wow, Star Trek can be good. And so ultimately the Orville, but then you watch someone like Craig, for instance, that doesn't watch Star Trek, is watching Orville and loving it. So our second episode is an episode called Command Performance. This is where we see Mercer gets imprisoned, and Grayson is a replicant of their former home and a zoo exhibit. The two of them get put into a kind of a zoo, and it reminded me a lot of the episode with Data where he gets kidnapped by Daphne's husband and put into that like a zoo or a jail of some sort. And
it totally makes sense why people like Craig or non-Star Trek fans would watch this and like this. It really does, because you can see so much more of your own personality in this show than you could in almost any of the characters in any of the Star Trek franchises. Like, there's this ideal in those Star Trek's universes that just doesn't hold up to our society and how we live our lives. So the subtle character developments in this series, I think you can relate to a lot more and a lot more openly. They play down the whole science part of this sci-fi.
Yeah, I don't want to always bring it back to Deep Space Nine, but that's one of the things I like most about Deep Space Nine, because they feel like the most rounded characters,
more rounded,
and not necessarily comedic or real to us, but at least like more rounded humans. Whereas on, as much as I love Next Generation, sometimes it feels like the Love Boat in space.
Yes.
Yeah. It sometimes feels like the Love Boat in space, where everyone's getting along and happy, and there's no like, oh, I have a problem because you beat me in poker. And
it's all self-internal problems or a virus that's making you want to kill me.
Right. Whereas you actually do get human problems on this, or human problems on Deep Space Nine when you get a chance, or problems like people just having issues with each other.
Right.
So the next episode we had was something called About a Girl, which was when Dr. Finn refuses Bortus and Clyden's request to have their daughter undergo sex reassignment surgery, which is standard practice for the Morklins. This again deals with a lot of Star Trek kind of issues with do we come things from the Federation's perspective, or do we go to the aliens' perspective? There's an episode with Worf that Worf injures his back and wants to kill himself, and Picard's like,
"Don't let him."
Yeah, and everyone in Beverly and Deanna are like, "Don't let him." And Picard and Riker are basically like, "Well, he's a Klingon. That's what Klingons do. We
Isn't
can't."
that where we get introduced to our second Doctor in that episode?
I believe so.
And then she ends up taking over in the next season.
And we need a Love Boat holodeck episode, The Next Generation. The next episode that we got after that is The Stars Should Appear. The Orville encounters a huge 2,000-year-old derelict ship drifting in the stars.
I liked that episode. I really did. There was the ecosystem in space.
Yep.
The massive ship, which was basically a planet. Like, how did nobody ever walk to the edge of the Earth and wonder why there's a big fucking wall here? And oh, this looks like a fucking door. It's been that long. Nobody walked out here.
Great episode, though. I liked it too. And the next episode, I know you're not a big fan of Charlize, but
fucking awful actress.
But she came and
but awful.
And Jonathan Frakes directed this episode, so it was definitely first officer centric, and it really sold me on the Grayson character. Then the next episode we had was called Krill. After recovering on a Krill shuttle intact, Mercer and Malloy are ordered to pose as Krill soldiers in order to change one of their vessels and get a copy of a sacred.
Those are the only kids on the ship. And so it's okay. We'll save the kids, but we'll kill all their fucking families. That'll be fine. They won't be traumatized. They'll love us for it. What? What? That was like the fucking stupidest fucking. Oh, we'll protect these 11 kids. That's just one grade. Didn't you notice they were all the same fucking age? But we'll kill all the rest of the kids on the fucking ship. The younger ones, the older ones. Everybody's fucking parent. Don't worry about it. Fuck them. But these 11 kids in this room, the 12-year-olds, they'll be fine.
Yes, and I believe that is where the Krill supplements came from. Our next episode, Majority Rules, is the episode we were kind of referring to earlier, where it's a little bit of, or I was referring to earlier, it's a little bit of like a Black Mirror episode that reminded me of that, where we go on to the planet and that Lamar ends up doing something that gets on the video feed. And
yeah, that's the Reputation one. That's right.
Everyone downvotes it or something like that. Yeah, I was confusing two things in my memory. And this is a really good bottle episode. Again, it reminds me a lot of the Black Mirror episode.
Oh, big time! It was absolutely the Black Mirror episode, which is, I think, another ripoff of the Twilight Zone. All the Black Mirrors kind of Twilight Zone or Outer Limits oriented. But
here we get into where we get, I think, these last bunch of episodes from episode 8 to episode 12, where I think the strongest of the season. We get into the Fold while traveling into a recreational planet. This is the Isaac and the Kids Planet episode. We already kind of talked about this one, and this was just, I thought, really well really well done and really emotional at times too. And I think this is just really great episode. The next one we had after that was Cupid's Dagger. Orville is dispatched on to mediate talk between two aliens.
Rob Lowe back.
Yep. And Rob Lowe comes back, and I fucking love Rob Lowe, and he's sort of letting off a pheromone, and I think he did really well in this part, in this cameo. And we find out that Grayson might have been infected when she cheated on him, but it's a very good episode. I don't want to ruin these in case you haven't seen them, so I'm not kind of telling you the specifics. We're not fully recapping these.
Right.
So then we get to Firestorm, which again, amazing fucking episode. Lieutenant Payne is trapped beneath a debris of plasma during a plasma storm. Alara's pyrophobia causes her to hesitate. So then we learn more about Alara. This is her chance of an episode where she learns from her parents, which one of them is the doctor from Voyager, and also someone named Molly Hagan, that and she ends up setting herself into sort of like a holodeck mental weird sort of situation, and sets her up on this weird sort of series of events that
the clown was fucking
a horrifying fucking clown and stuff. And then our next episode 11 is the one that this is just a really good episode of Star Trek, where the the chief engineer is leaving the ship, and they have to figure out who the next chief engineer is going to be. It's also a side mission going on at the same time that they have to check out a big mission that's going to require something. And they also find out in this episode that Lamar is a genius, and the first officer.
2D episode. They
What was
go
that?
to the 2D universe.
Oh yes, this is when they go to the 2D universe.
Tron looking board.
Yep, I forgot about that.
Board.
Yep, and this is a really good episode too. And then our final episode, which we'll talk a little bit more about, was Mad Idolatry. Idolatry. And it is about, they come to a planet that's phasing through time back and forth.
All hail the Kelly.
And then they see the first officer who heals a wound of a child. And that ends up becoming the dogmatic thing of that planet. So then every 15 minutes or so, the world comes back, and it's 700 years later. So the world keeps progressing and evolving and evolving, evolving. And every time they go back, they see that the name of God is replaced with Kelly, and people are doing these horrible things. First the Crusades, and then murdering people, and then like all this fucking shit. But eventually they decide to leave Isaac there for one of the 700 years gaps. And in that, it's also the future. There's a whole bunch of stuff with the prime directive, as Joe was talking about earlier. And also it's coupled with Mercer and his first officers thinking about getting their relationship back together. Joe, what did you think of the season finale?
I liked it. It wasn't like all finale-ish, but as far as I'm concerned, a series like this doesn't have to be. You can wrap up a series or a season, and I really hate fucking cliffhangers at the end of seasons. I want you to finish off a fucking story. I don't want you to like finish off a story, start another story, and then cliffhang us for it, like The Walking Dead kind of tries to do a lot of the time. Like the cliffhanger is so overused. It's so fucking. It's just.
It's predictable now.
Done. It's predictable. The bad guy lives. You know, like this whole thing about the bad guy living and being the bad guy for season after season after season is done. It's been tested. It's done. It's failed as far as I'm concerned now. And this whole thing about like, oh, I'm going to kill the 800 underlings that are trying to kill me to stop me from killing you. But when I get to you, the big main bad guy, I'm not going to kill you. You're just going to take you prisoner. Why? Why not kill that person when you've killed the 800 people to get to him? Did he not try to kill you? Did he not try to kill the world or whatever?
He makes too much money.
Thousands of people on the way to this. Like, that shit is so tired. It's done. It's played out. You know, get on with it. Tell us a complete story. Or if it's an episodic show like Orville happens to be, where you don't depend on last week's episode. The main plot or the main story was basically our 5-year mission, and will they or won't they fuck again? Right.
Yeah. And I mean, that's an okay for carry through. Ultimately, what he wanted to do was do an episodic show. That's why he didn't bring it to Netflix or something like that. He didn't want to binge watch. He wants week to week. He wanted to bring back something that isn't really on TV anymore. A week to week, something that doesn't have to connect, minus the Law and Order shows maybe, or something like that, where they can be week to week. And I don't even know if, I think those, they even started to add like ongoing storylines. I don't really watch them, but
and it's horrible. It's not fun to watch that.
Some shows should be episodic. Not everything has to be these fucking serial type stuff. It just,
right.
And I like serial programming better than episodic by nature, but going back and rewatching Cheers, as we were talking about, going back and watching some of those episodic kind of stuff, the good stuff, Scrubs even, or you know, whatever your early Arrested Development, like if you're watching these early episodes of things that don't necessarily connect to each other, it's kind of a good feeling sometimes, and it makes you feel variety is the spice of life. Is that what that expression is? Yep. And I think you need to do that with television, and the fact that the entertainment industry is so, when something's popular, you just do it like to death until it's not popular anymore, and then you don't see anything else. Like I like, and I don't want to get this on a whole big rant about this. This could be a different video. I like superhero movies. I don't want to see a world where they don't exist, but not every big blockbuster movie has to be a superhero movie.
Right.
And it doesn't have to be that every event movie is that, or every television series that's great needs to be a deep, dark, mental exploration with a main character that's flawed but emotional, but you care about him. Sometimes it can just be cheesy happy times flying through space and get good episodes.
Give me an hour of TV that I can sit down and watch without having to have sat down and watched the previous 5 hours to know what the fuck is going on.
Exactly.
To know who's fucking who's trying to kill who. I just want my characters. I want them for an hour.
Sometimes on a couple shows, Joe, on a couple shows, and it can't just all be only animation that does that.
Correct.
You know, where South Park does do that, Simpsons does do that, Family Guy does do that. Like they carry on a little bit, but they're episodics, or there's a lot of other. But it can't just be animation that does that.
Or half-hour shows.
Or just half-hour comedy shows. Some 1 hour dramas can be 1 hour episodic shows. As Bloody Talker was talking about, episodic with good character development to smaller arcs, way to go. Bloody Talker, he talked about this a little bit earlier. Message me on Discord. I'll get back to you. I'll message you over there. We'll talk about that. I'm going to be doing it right after the movie, probably like 10 o'clock on Thursday, and then probably the next weekend or next week after Joe and Matt and a couple other people get to watch it, and then do a more spoiler review. I think you probably rather be in on the spoiler review, but you're welcome to come on in the no spoiler. That probably just wouldn't be as much fun. So I'll let you know when Joe and I and Matt are going to do our spoiler review, and then you can join us for that. It'll probably be on a Friday or a Saturday night or something like that on the next couple of weeks once Joe and Matt get a chance to watch Star Wars. So I'll keep you posted on that, because I wouldn't want, because the spoiler review, I'm just going to come here after the movie airs and go, it sucked or it was awesome. And I don't, you really want to be on that, because I have to be as non-spoilery as possible. But we'll talk more. Send me a message or an email, and we'll babble.
Danae Washington, it's not that I'm chiller on Thursdays, it's that I'm talking about content that's a lot higher on my scale of watchability at the moment. We went from the Vikings podcast straight into Orville, both of which I believe to be actually better shows than The Walking Dead currently.
Yeah.
In what they are in their respective genres. They rate higher on a scale of 1 to 10 for me. I'm not saying that necessarily I like them more than The Walking Dead in its entirety, but they're just right now rating much higher for me. So I'm in a good mood, having watched the finale earlier today, getting to talk about the entire season of Orville and the Vikings.
Very fair. So everybody
talking about The Walking Dead, I'd be shitting all over last Sunday's episode still right
so now. All in all, to finish this up about Orville, do you just want to see more of the same in season 2? Are there any improvements that you think they could make?
I hope they get away from the will they won't they get back together and fuck thing. We kind of settled that with this episode as far as I'm concerned. So let's move on. Let's be done with it. Let's just get into more of the same of everything else.
Cool. And for me, I just want to see basically more of the same and a little bit even more of some of the side characters. And not that I want Seth MacFarlane to disappear on the show. I accept he's the captain. I don't want to see him die and get another captain or something like that. But I be replaced by live action Trey Parker. But
I think he'll open up more. I think he'll get better as it goes.
I thought he got either I got used to it or he got better as the season was going. And I think
he's definitely getting more comfortable behind
it's because the cast is chemistry. And I just want to see even more of Alara, more of Isaac, more of his. I want to see more exploration of more world building in season 2, more individual episodes where Bortus goes on a mission all by himself, and we see all about Bortus's world. A mission where Isaac has to decide to side against his own people, to side on the Orville because they want to wipe out all human race, and they think Isaac's mission, studying them, is done. I want to see more Star Trek cameos just because I love those actors, and I think that they would all do really well in this world. I love that
they're coming over for it. I love that they're coming over for it.
I could definitely see LeVar Burton. I could definitely see Brent Spiner. I could definitely see Shatner on this. I could definitely see Takei on this. I could definitely see
all of them. I could see any single one of them coming through. I would be happy to see. I think that that MacFarlane would love to have anybody that has anything to do with Star Wars come through as a big fuck you to CBS.
Yep. And I think I've been saying Bortus. Bortus. Yeah, Bortus. Bortus. Yeah, I'd like to see them go to Saru's planet and check out all of that. So Isaac's race Isaac's Borg-like data creatures invade Saru's planet, and he feels lots of death. Anyways, everybody, thank you so much for checking out this Orville stream. Really do appreciate it. And Joe and I will definitely do some more Orville content in the off season in between, as soon as we get some more information about season 2, and maybe invite good excuse for Joe to come by to watch a couple of episodes of Orville once it gets released. Or Joe said he has Hulu and it's already there, or to get him to come over here and sign in his Hulu on my television. Anyways, guys, I will be back this Sunday to talk some Walking Dead. Also, I will probably be on the Dirty Issues channel tomorrow, Saturday, to play some of the Zelda DLC. So if anyone's curious to watch some more Zelda, check that out. Joe's always on there playing some Friday 13th. Taka Pop's in there over there as well. And if you haven't and you like more of a chill Joe, come check out Joe play some Friday 13th over on Dirty Issues.
Give two quick shout outs to a couple of gamers I've been playing with a lot lately. Jimmy Boy, you can catch him as French Canadian Jason on YouTube. He's got some videos there, and Gary Eakin on YouTube, or Madman Mars.
Oh, lots of love to Gary. D says, I think someone's leaving from the original cast in Orville. Oh, fuck. I hope the only person I would accept it being is the person who does the voice of Isaac, and then they replace him with Brent Spiner.
With Spinner?
With Spiner, or David Hyde Pierce could also.
I'd be okay with Norm leaving.
I'd be okay with Norm leaving too.
Or the Doctor.
You think you'd be okay with Cassidy leaving? They need to replace her with another Star Trek actor.
Or someone necessarily.
I could see Bashir showing up on the show too. I could see Nana Visitor. I could see Andrew Robinson popping on in here. I could see.
I'm not sure. Bashir, I think, is doing Atlantis.
Yeah, Bashir's may be too big. I could see Quark showing up here. Definitely Armin Shimmerin for sure showing up, and also Odo. I could see all those guys showing up.
Isn't he dead?
No, neither of those guys is dead.
I thought Odo died.
No. Not as far as I know, Joe. Don't jinx him. Don't jinx him. Don't do it. Don't do it to Odo. He's a fucking. Don't make him a solid, Joe. But everybody, thank you so much.
Good call, Macphil. Good call over.
We will talk to you guys next time, and I'll be on this Sunday. If you're watching this anytime in this week, I'll be before Sunday, and I will be on Dirty Issues. So please subscribe, hit the like button if you haven't already. Join us. You can find all the ways to help us in the description box below. Different ways you can help the channel grow, or just help us support us, or keep the discussion going on the Discord or the Facebook or the Google group, or live or on Twitter if you follow Joe at Dirty Locks or me at Twitter. So talk to you next time, Joe. Thank you so much, buddy.
Peace.
Later. If anyone's looking for links on how to get places, Iron Throne's going to throw some in a second here. And also, you can find all those links in the description box below. I have like too many. You can find all the ways to find us and join the fun, but definitely join the Discord group. Keep the fucking discussion going. Make sure if you have any requests also of stuff you'd like us to cover, feel free to email me at igetissuesman@gmail.com, or call in 24 hours a day, 7 days a week at 781-990-8509. And if you're out of the country and you want to get a voicemail in, you can add me on Skype at iGetIssuesMan and just call me and leave me a voicemail there, or even a video call or something like that. I'll just use the audio and play your call on the show. Thank you, everybody.